If you're wanting the most powerful rocket launching hybrid paddle in EPP foam, this Element 6 Zephyr is your paddle. The Element 6 folks messaged me while I was away at the beach and said their production model was in, and I went ahead and recorded a video there because I was so excited about it. But by the time I had gotten back from the beach, this competitor, the Ronbus Quanta, had already released. So I wanted to be able to play them both, the production model Zephyr, the Quanta, give a fair comparison after a week or so of play and letting play testers try them too, to see if there was any justification for $125 Zephyr over the $99 Quanta. And I will say I do love the Quanta. It is an excellent budget value paddle. I know, and I really respect Chris Olsen and all the other reviewers and all their opinions. They were joking that this is sort of the poor man's boomstick, I guess. Although I'm not feeling that. I think there's some people who are really going to stick with the boomstick or like the boomstick better for a couple different reasons. First of all, you definitely have to want to mess around with the weight of your paddle and customization of your paddle. And the twist weight of this comes in very low. So I'm just going to do a direct comparison of the hybrids. And even when I weight up my R1, it's not hitting nearly as hard, even with the same amount of weight as the boomstick. So the Quanta requires quite a bit of weight just even for it to become stable. So it gets pushed around. I don't know who probably want to play this stock, in my opinion. I mean, there might be people out there who just love a super light paddle, but the paddle does change positively when you put weight on it. The only difference, and the reason I want to say this before I go ahead and clip into the original review I did of the Zephyr, is I want to be clear that the only reason I think this is worth the extra $25 is that this Quanta R4, the competitor, it does, and it's excellent, but it does have a really low twist weight. So you do have to weight it up to bring up the twist weight. It's a twist weight that's like well below 6.0. This starts out as light, so their static weight and swing weights are about the same. They both have about a 107 swing weight and like a 7.74, 7.72 to 7.74 static weight. But the huge difference in the twist weight, by the time you add the weight to this Quanta to get the twist weight up to this paddle, I mean, you're making this very heavy. So the big difference is this one comes in stock, same swing weight, same static weight, with a much, much higher, and I'll put the exact numbers on the screen, but this comes in with a really pretty surprisingly good above 6, like 6.5 twist weight. So even if you do want to add a tiny bit of weight, because it does start out light, it just gets so much better in terms of its sweet spot. The twist weight is a good indicator of the sweet spot. And I know with the foam, twist weight is not always the best indicator of a sweet spot, but I wanted to introduce this before I go ahead and go into the review that I captured at the beach about specifically the Zephyr, and say that it is maybe worth for people who like a different feel as well. So the touch, in my opinion, on the Quanta is a little more muted, even though it has a good hollow feel. I like typically a hollow feel, and this is slightly more dense. And I'll put up a little slide kind of showing left to right the softest to most firm, the paddles that I happen to have here in Atlanta that I took a picture of. But the reason I do think this is a slightly similar feel is it does come off a little hollow. The more you weight it, the less hollow it is. But this definitely, the boomstick has a more hollow feel. The Zephyr has more of a, and none of these are probably as sinking well as the gearbox, but it's definitely what I would describe as a hybrid version of the body helix flick. So if you played the body helix flick or you've heard about the body helix flick, it's the most powerful paddle. I don't think anybody's debating the amount of power that you get from this. People are asking, how is this legal? And that's one of the reasons I wanted to record this today. I was down in Atlanta. I gave the Zephyr to a 5.0 gal who's playing the boomstick, and she immediately said, can you get me one of these Zephyrs for a tournament next week? And dropped her boomstick immediately to pick up the Zephyr. So, and part of that was her kills, her drives. She has enough touch with this. You do have to be a little precise, as you'll see when I go into the full review. And it doesn't mean, you know, there was another gal here in Atlanta that chose the R3 Quanta over everything. So everybody likes what they like, but this it's a hybrid that has as much or more, because my guys were serving 60 miles an hour with this, as much or more power than the boomstick. It's definitely not as powerful as the flick, but it's pretty close to the gearbox and the flick, and probably a little more power, maybe a little less pop, but still quite poppy too, than the boomstick. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that video review that I've already recorded, but I just wanted to make a case for the Zephyr versus the Quanta. They're both fabulous, both hybrid shapes. This R4 is an excellent paddle for $99, but I do think there are some people who are going to like this more. The bigger reason that I like it better personally, I'm finding that all of the special things about this, the fact that the EPP goes into the handle and there are elastomer inserts, it's dampening in a way that I don't have good touch and feel at the net, like for dinks and for drops and resetting. I'm just not getting the feel that I'm getting from the Zephyr and some other paddles. So you might like that mutedness, but this is a little less muted, a little more reactive, gives you a little more feedback. The one thing I do need to say about it, though, is I'm worried about other reviewers. They'll be getting this in a week or so, and if they take the time to cover it, you do need to, Element 6 puts kind of a thick, gritty, really gritty face layer on their paddles, which means it takes about 4 to 6 hours, depending on how hard you hit. So this is going to heat up and get softer, particularly because it's foam. It's going to heat up over the first 4 to 6 hours, and the sweet spot will broaden and it will become softer. So if you start playing it in the first hour or two of play, you think, I don't like this, you will not have given it a chance, because it really does need probably 4 to 6 hours of break-in. And all of the foams need to be kind of loosened up a little bit, but this one, particularly because of the gritty, thick face layer he has on it, needs to be worked in. The last thing I want to say before I go into the original recording of the review is that these are $125 at Element 6 during a pre-sale pre-order with code. So although they're $25 more than the Quanta, I think that's going to be worth it for a lot of people, just for the power difference alone. But I think it's maybe worth it for the feel as well. I am doing this from the beach. I was just excited that this passed PV Core and that he's got it on pre-sale pre-order. They have a 15-day return policy, so if you're not happy with the paddle in the first 15 days, no questions asked, they're taking it back. He's got a full 1-year warranty as well. I'm at the beach, so I didn't get an x-ray of this, but it's nothing exciting because it is a full EPP slab with a surround of EVA, so it's pretty simple. The Surtr is a totally different paddle in that it is one of the few EVA injected foam paddles, so it's got carbon fiber ribbing. The Ripple is similar construction, and the gearboxes, the GX2, the GX2 Power, they're kind of, everybody's separating them from these full EPP foam paddles. So people immediately ask, well, what's the difference between this and the Surtr? I'm going to talk about that in performance, but its construction is really different because it is a full EPP slab embedded in an EVA ring. So light density, though, really light. Let's talk about the specs. It's a 16mm hybrid, but it almost feels like a 14mm because it's so light, but it's their same shape as their Surtr and the same shape as like Thrive Fury. It's got 7.5 in width here, and it tapers out to about 7.7, 16.3 overall, a 5.5 grip length, so it's easy for two-handed backhand. Circumference is the typical 4.25. Mine came in at a static of 7.78. These actually will be coming in under 8 ounces. My swing weight was about 110. Twist weight was pretty fantastic. It's just the foam is not even really, when you look at a twist weight for foam, it's not even really representing how good the sweet spot is necessarily. But this one was 6.48. They're saying their twist weights will be between 6.3 and 6.6. The balance point was great too, under 24, so 23.97, which is great. I've added, because this paddle is so light, I've added a couple grams. This is 0.5, so about 2 grams at each shoulder, just for a little bit of break-in and stability. I've been playing all the foam options, and they've kind of knocked this out of the park, and I guess that's sort of a good way of putting it, because, I mean, this thing just rockets the ball if you connect and hit the sweet spot. It is a power paddle, so I'm not going to recommend it for everybody. In fact, it is what I would describe as a toned down version of the Body Helix Flick, which a lot of people were loving that. It is the top of USAP legal power. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that right now. This is going to be a toned down version of that with a much better sweet spot. And actually, nobody's saying that the Flick doesn't have great touch. This has great touch. It has a nice soft feel for foam. It's a very light, low density foam. So it absorbs the ball very well, but it also then has a really big rebound. So I wouldn't recommend it probably for anybody below a 375 probably, because they might have some issues controlling this. It's definitely hitting 60 miles an hour serves. My guys were hitting that hard with this. So it'll be interesting. It's clearly, as I did my power lineup, right up there after the Body Helix. Probably the elongated boomstick is hitting a little harder than this, but it's definitely hitting as hard as or harder than the Yola, the Gearbox GX2 Powers. Part of it is just the light swing weight, so you're able to swing it so fast. The foam has some good, it's low density, so it's got some great rebound. It's definitely, if we're looking at the hybrids, the most offensive hybrid. It's up there with the Ripple. So the hybrid Ripple is the 4, the Gearbox GX2 Power, the Groovin foam, the Thrive Fury, which isn't actually a foam paddle, and the Surtr as well. It does have more power and more pop than the Surtr, especially on full swings and drives. So good touch and control though for the amount of power. It's not as difficult as the elongated Flick to control, but it's not going to be considered easy to control either. So this is one I've kind of struggled with, mostly because I have to play with a bunch of other paddles. So it's much easier for me to play with, for example, I've been playing a lot with the Thrive Fury, the Surtr, the Honolulus, the Gearbox I'm getting adjusted to. And the boomstick, I like the shorter boomstick, but any of those others like the 11624, which I loved Alpha Powers, the Selkirk Aero Pro, I mean, those are all going to be a little easier to control than this. And if we're talking about foam, the Honolulus are, again, going to be much easier to control. So this is going to be on the more difficult to control. You know, I'd say it's the difference between, somewhere in between. This is a good comparison. The boomstick wide body standard is a reasonable paddle for somebody who's 3.5 and above. I think it's fairly easy to control. The elongated, it's not, the sweet spot is a little bit smaller, and it's just a little more weighty and difficult, and a little more poppy because it's wielding more power. So this is somewhere in between. So it's not an uncontrollable paddle, but it's not an easily controlled paddle. It's one that you have to kind of focus on. And if you're switching paddles a lot, you kind of have to readjust when you pick it back up. Often when I'm playing other paddles, I pick this up, you know, I'll sail a serve returns, or I will a volley or something, or a kill, because you're swinging just much faster since it's so lightweight. So again, you just have to kind of adjust, and then it does have a great sweet spot, so and really decent dwell. It's on the softer side, but it just has, like Eddie John QCAP says, it has a major buoying factor because of the EPP is low density, and it gives it quite a bit of pop. So I'm still sort of trying to rein it in myself. Let me just walk you through the points from the baseline. This is if you are like a serve and attack player and you like a hybrid for that, this is going to be like the best hybrid for that sort of game. You're going to have killer serves with this and killer drives with this. Working the way through the transition, it's not, like I said, an uncontrollable pop. If you're used to the pop of the Surtr, this isn't too much worse. It's It's got a good low ball trajectory and a lot of spin. It's got a nice surface for spin and nice dwell for spin, but it's gonna, as I said, not be as easy as some of those lower power Gen 3s, like, again, the 11624 Alpha, the Selkirk era power, even the standard boomstick, the wide body boomstick. Those are going to be a little easier for you to get your drops dialed in. Definitely not as easy as the Honolulus, for example. Where this is going to shine is, I mean, this just kills at the kitchen. It's so light and fast. Counters come off of this so fast. Speed ups are vicious. So it just feels a lot faster than, for example, I just mentioned the FC Plus, the Honolulu, a lot faster than the GX2 Power even. Fast comes off faster than the Surtr, and it maybe is comparable in weight to the new TFG Carbon True Foam Genesis 4, which is a lot lighter swing weight than the previous TFGs, and it's lighter than the Franklin. But again, it has more stability because it's a 16 millimeter, but it feels as fast as those 14 millimeters, and it definitely has, you know, similar to ripple rebound. If you're used to the ripple, then you'll be able to handle this rebound. I should have thought of that. Like, the ripple is a paddle that has this similar kind of rebound, but probably needs a little more stability because it's 14 millimeters. So this is kind of neat because it's fast and stable, and it has that kind of rebound. So it maybe is a step up even from the ripples in that sense. So in conclusion, the only reason I was taking time out at the beach to go ahead and do a review on this is that it's kind of unmatched power and maneuverability with the cost. So it is, for the cost, if you're looking for a foam paddle that's fast and maneuverable, has great power. If you're an upper level player, you'll kill with this. Again, if you're not quite 3.75, I'd almost say this would just be a for fun paddle. And I'd say as I work to be a 4.5, this is a tricky paddle for me, I'll be honest. It's not easy to control, but it's not an impossibility to control it either. So if you're willing to put the time into it and drill, again, I just wouldn't recommend it for the average intermediate at 3.5. It's just a little bit tricky. It again has a 1-year warranty, retails for $139, which is terrific, and then with code 125, it would be worth trying. So I'm excited to hear how people like this. I feel like people gave me a hard time for just loving the Surtr so much, but I think it was a special paddle. This is special for different reasons, but I just want to be clear that it isn't going to be for everyone. I'm going to try to say in most of my videos here now recently that it does help if you use my code, just to give some credibility for me as a newer reviewer and to support the channel. So I hope you will like and subscribe, and just know that I'm in this to help people find right fit paddles, and I know every paddle isn't going to fit for everyone, but this one's special, and I think it is some people are really going to have a lot of fun with this and just love the way that it plays. Hope to see you in the next one.